shocking new evidence in the Sydney ghost train fire for over 40 years. The official story about the fire that tore through Sydney's Luna Park ghost train was simple. It was a tragic accident. An electrical fault, a terrible but unavoidable event that stole 7 innocent lives. What if it was mass murder, planned and carried out for profit? And what if the truth was buried under a mountain of police corruption and organized crime? A conspiracy designed to protect Sydney's most powerful and deny justice to the dead. But what if that was a lie? What if it wasn't an accident at all? The iconic smiling face at the entrance welcomed thousands into a world of light, laughter, and fun. For one group of friends, 4 boys from Waverly College, it was a special night out. It was a place for making memories. Richard Carroll, Michael Johnson, Jonathan Billings, and Seamus Rahawley were just 12 and 13 years old, best mates on their first big trip to the park without their parents. As firefighters fought the blaze, a crowd stood in stunned silence, watching one of Sydney's happiest landmarks become a tomb. The smiling face of the park now looked down on an unimaginable tragedy. New evidence, hidden for decades, is now dragging the dark, terrifying truth of what really happened on that cold winter night in June 1979 into the light. From the start, there were troubling questions and whispers that something much darker had happened. As many as 8 separate witnesses claimed they saw these men near the ghost train, just hanging around. Some even overheard them talking about using kerosene and matches. Yet, when these witnesses tried to report what they saw to the police, they were ignored, dismissed, or never even contacted. If you believe these families deserve justice, consider hitting the subscribe button and turning on notifications. By staying informed, you help make sure these stories are never forgotten. It was as if the investigation was aimed at one conclusion, and any evidence pointing to arson was deliberately pushed aside. Multiple witnesses, including people who were on the ride just minutes before the fire, came forward with disturbing accounts. Abe Saffron, nicknamed Mr. Sin, Saffron ran an underworld empire. A powerful 3-part documentary series by the Australian Broadcasting Corporation exposed the ghost train fire, blew the case wide open. At the center of the allegations was one of Sydney's most notorious organized crime bosses. According to Saffron's own niece and former senior police officers speaking out for the first time, Saffron wanted the Luna Park site for redevelopment and orchestrated the fire to get it. For the survivors and the victims' families, the past 4 decades had been a nightmare, made worse by the feeling that they were denied the truth. A last-minute decision to wait for the next car saved her life, but she has carried the weight of that night ever since. He was in a different car and was pulled out just in time. The media called him the luckiest boy alive, but he never felt lucky. Why me? He has asked himself for over 40 years. He felt the crushing guilt of being the one who lived while his friends died. Why did I survive? One former officer stated on camera he was 100% sure Saffron was behind the fire, and Seamus Rahawley have waited for answers and for justice. Now, with the truth clawing its way into the light, the final question remains. After all this time, after all the lies and corruption, will they finally get it? What do you think needs to happen for justice to finally be served? Let us know in the comments below. After the tragedy, a company run by Saffron's relatives won the tender to take over the park. 4 small coffins, each draped with a boy's rugby jersey, were carried into St. Mary's Cathedral, a heartbreaking symbol of stolen innocence. What was once dismissed as an accident is now seen by many as a case of arson and mass murder, orchestrated by organized crime and covered up by a compromised system. For these families, the new evidence is about finally having their long-held suspicions validated. A $1 million reward for significant information was issued, a reward that notably doesn't require a conviction. In September 2024, the police review was completed, and a redacted version of the report was given to the victims' families and the state coroner. The coroner is now reviewing that report to decide if a new inquest, one that could finally reveal the full truth, will be held. It's about the hope, however faint, that accountability might finally be possible. Drawing on Martin Sharp's massive archive and new interviews, journalist Caro Meldrum Hanna presented a mountain of evidence that challenged the electrical fault theory and painted a chilling picture of arson and a high-level cover-up. The detective in charge of the original case, Doug Knight, was described by former colleagues as a fixer known for taking bribes. Former police insiders alleged that key evidence was mishandled and that witnesses pointing to arson were ignored, cementing the accident narrative and protecting Saffron. The series suggested the corruption may have gone all the way to the top, with links between Saffron and powerful figures in politics and the judiciary. They claimed to have smelled kerosene, the unmistakable scent of an accelerant, near where the fire started. The fire wasn't just an accident. It was, as many now believe, mass murder for profit, enabled by the very people sworn to uphold the law. One witness was 12 out of 10 inches certain it was kerosene. Section 1. A night of screams within 24 hours. Before the ruins had even cooled, they announced their conclusion: an electrical fault. One of them was the artist Martin Sharp, who had helped design Luna Park's famous face. He spent the rest of his life obsessively gathering evidence, convinced it was a calculated act of arson, a tragic, unforeseen accident. A coroner's inquest later that year gave an open finding, stating the exact cause couldn't be determined, but leaning heavily on the police story. The coroner noted that Luna Park's management had failed to install a recommended sprinkler system, but decided against criminal charges. The smoke was thick and black as tar, as one firefighter later described it. For the authorities, the case was closed. It was a classic ride, meant for harmless scares and nervous giggles as rickety cars clattered through the dark. But on this night, the make-believe horror became real. A fire broke out inside the ride. Fueled by flammable materials and fanned by a chimney-like effect, it exploded into an inferno. Laughter turned to panic. A few people managed to escape, pulled out by heroic park staff just moments before their cars were engulfed by flames. John Godson, his 2 little boys, and the 4 friends from Waverly College all died inside. On the evening of June 9, 1979, Luna Park was buzzing. Also there for a night of family fun was John Godson with his 2 young sons, 4-year-old Craig and 6-year-old Damien. Their lives, full of promise, were about to collide in the most horrific way. Just after 10 p.m., they all boarded the ghost train, but 7 people didn't make it out. Section 2. The official story and lingering doubts as the city grieved. The demand for answers was overwhelming. The NSW police investigation was fast, maybe too fast. But for many, the story never felt right. Even more alarming were the reports of a group of suspicious-looking men, described as bickies. For decades, these doubts grew, kept alive by the victims' families and a few dedicated people who refused to accept the official story. Call to action. The fight for truth in cases like this often depends on public pressure. Section 3. The conspiracy allegations in 2021. Everything changed. The series presented a compelling motive: control of Luna Park's priceless real estate on Sydney Harbor. The exposed documentary alleged that Saffron could have pulled it off without help from corrupt officers inside the NSW police force. The story that had been dismissed as a conspiracy theory for 40 years was now backed by on-the-record testimony from police insiders and a clear motive. Section 4. The unending trauma behind the allegations of crime and corruption lies the profound human cost of this tragedy. Jenny Godson lost her husband John and her 2 sons, Craig and Damien. Then there is Jason Holman. At just 12 years old, he was on the ride with his 4 best friends from Waverly College. The funeral for the 4 Waverley boys was a moment of deep grief for the entire community. The new evidence in the Sydney ghost train fire has turned a 40-year-old tragedy into one of Australia's most disturbing stories of alleged crime and corruption. Following the exposed documentary, the NSW police reopened the case, establishing Strike Force Sedgman to review all the evidence. For over 4 decades, the families of John Godson, Craig Godson, Damien Godson, Richard Carroll, Michael Johnson, Jonathan Billings, and Seamus Rahali have waited for answers and for justice. Now, with the truth clawing its way into the light, the final question remains. After all this time, after all the lies and corruption, will they finally get it? What do you think needs to happen for justice to finally be served? Let us know in the comments below.